What's up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones and AJ. We are here for the final edition of the UNC football show for this season. Obviously, there'll be many more football shows to come and many more drops and THI podcasts regarding football. As I think I can pretty confidently say, AJ, it's going to be we're going to talk a little bit more about football this offseason than we normally do, right? Probably.
I don't think college football season ever ends anymore.
No, especially when you hire a new coach.
Basketball season does end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think when you get to the middle of July, or early July, into September, I think college basketball is almost completely off. There's some recruiting stuff,
but it's minimal. Yeah.
Every once in a while might be a commit, but by and large, it's literally an off season for college football, especially now because Carolina's going to have a trickle of coach hirings that are going to be announced as current teams that are playing either in college or NFL stop playing. And Bill Belichick's not in a race to put together a staff, to publicly announce a staff for recruiting purposes because they've already got a recruiting mechanism in place. And quite frankly, Bill Belichick and Michael Lombardi can tell a kid, this is what we're going to do. And the kid's not going to question it. No. So, and they still have the whole recruiting staff that was left over. They're all still there. Mm-hmm. You know, Julian and Pat and all of them are still doing yeoman's work for the program. And they're selling what the program already has to offer. And now you got the Belichick factor. Yeah, it's not going to, there is no off season, especially this off season with all the coaching hires and new staff. You know what's wild?
Portal. It's crazy.
You know what's wild is I talked to Bubba Cunningham. He was in New York. Talked to him outside the Carolina locker room about, I said, you might find this interesting, but our football traffic is blowing away basketball traffic right now.
Oh, yeah.
I said, I've never seen that before.
Weird.
Now, I've seen it even in stretches, but I've never seen football traffic just annihilate. But basketball traffic has stayed very strong. We're in a position now where we're 30 days. Mack was fired. It came out 4 weeks ago today. Today's Tuesday?
Yes, 24th. We're recording this on the 24th. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm in a whirlwind
tonight at some point. Yeah.
It's been one long day with a couple of naps in between. So this is day 30 since he was technically fired, day 29 since we found out about it. And in this span, we've done probably around 3 million views.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Maybe even more. And I haven't looked in the last 4 or 5 days. So really, our chart beat's hitting a lot. People are thinking Carolina football and they're optimistic. The apathy is gone. Yeah, even the most pessimistic people on our message boards, either the free board, which has a few, and then a few who just, I think, wallow in misery for joy.
A few
and comfort. And then some people on the premium board, they're having a hard time being negative right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's the story. There's a lot of things we could talk about, Jacob, as far as specifics with the football program. But I think the overriding thing for me right now is the fact that there was so much apathy that there were swaths of empty seats for the NC State game. Mm-hmm. And that was after Mack was fired. Mm-hmm. But it is completely flipped. There were people who thought the idea of Belichick was a terrible idea initially that have rallied around it. They're probably wearing cut-off hoodie things right now. All their clothing, like Bubba, they had and you know what happened with that, by the way, with the jacket, the sports?
Yeah, I think you told me his wife went and got him a suit at the thrift store or something like that.
The thrift store that morning and bought him a sports coat, and she cut the sleeves off for him. She paid $9 for it.
Oh, I love that, man.
$9.
I was wondering when he did it. I'm like, is that like what kind of suit are we talking there? It might be an expensive suit. I'm glad it wasn't, because that would have been a tough.
Bubba's got a sense of humor.
Yeah, that was funny.
It doesn't always come out from a distance, but he's got a sense of humor. And putting that on, that was such a great look. And
he sat up there the whole time with it. I thought he was going to wear it for like 2 minutes of the day off.
That was such a great move on his part.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, it's Bubba needed the Zoom and needed the in-person meeting with Belichick, if you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. 100%.
So this has been an amazing month, last 4 weeks for North Carolina football, for the football fan, the people that, we've never changed our coverage. We've never pulled back when the team struggles. We've covered it the same because there are the passionate people. First of all, there's only one way to do the job. Second, there's still very passionate people who pay their hard-earned money to be on our site, be premium members. Not going to cut corners. Even if the team is 0-11 going into the NC State game, there's still people that want to know the depth chart. There's still people who want to know the ins and outs. They want to know what the players are saying on Tuesday. I'm never going to cut corners on that. But what I find, so I'm very happy for those people. What I'm finding right now is the minutia of it all. There are a lot of people that are embracing the minutia. Mm-hmm. And I've never seen this kind of interest in the portal. Those portal threads are off the charts.
Oh, my God.
We're running them on the front page a lot now.
I know.
And
it's amazing.
It's also interesting, too, and I will sidebar by saying this, and I think I've hijacked this podcast already, just like I did the basketball one. I'm going to end up doing like 6 months in prison for this crime, for stealing all this time from you. But anyway, the class that they brought in, it's not like they brought in a bunch of first team all conference guys all over the place. Like I think a lot of people expected, but it's interesting that if Mack would have brought in this class, I don't think it would be as celebrated. And I'm making a point here. I don't think it would be nearly as celebrated. You're bringing in guys who haven't played a ton, but hey, they went to this school. Or even if they went to Rice, they never played at Georgia. They're basically the Austin Blasky of Rice. Mm-hmm. When they come to Carolina, people are celebrating it. If it was Mack, they wouldn't be celebrating it that much. And I think that was the apathy with Mack, and is the unbridled optimism of now.
Yes, belief. There was no belief anymore.
Because the class probably is not as great as it appears based on reaction, simply because people are going to – like if Jacob Turner – committed to Carolina as a transfer from App State right now, and you were going to play cornerback at your age, married, sitting here going from podcast to the football field, and you've never put on shoulder pads before, I don't think, have you?
No, never played. This is one of the few sports I never played was football. I wish I did, but I didn't.
You never put on shoulder pads before. You probably don't know how to tie them and that kind of thing. Mm-mm. And people would be like, oh, man, we got this Turner guy. This is great.
Yeah. No, they'd be fired up.
This Turner guy. There's Turner with hidden gem. This Turner. Well, I'll tell you what, they sure know how to find him. Or now the thing is, that's a Belichick find.
Yeah.
Because he's known for finding guys like that.
Yeah.
So Jacob Turner committing as a transfer cornerback from App State would be a Belichick find.
Yeah. Where if Mack did it a year ago, it would be a fireable offense, and it would be a
fireable offense. But I love it in this. I don't love it for Mack, but I love it for right now because A, it's great for business. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. Yeah.
B, I'm just so glad to see people whom I've known for a long time through association with our site just happy and optimistic.
Yeah, for sure. It's great to see. I mean, it's always nice to have, again, because you said it, we don't cut corners. We cover the team like we've always covered the team, but it is unfortunate from a business perspective when nobody really cares. It's so, I mean, and I'm not speaking out of turn here. It's just, I'm not trying to focus on the business part of it.
I started laughing when I was drinking that. I think I got
call a spade, man. I mean, like sometimes you feel like you're talking to yourself in some of these reports because nobody cares. You know what I mean? But now people do. So it is nice to see that.
I don't look at view numbers with the pods a lot. Like I'll say 6 times a day. I gotta find out if we got more, but I will check because I want to know what people.
Yeah, see if people are engaging in it. Yeah,
just like with the traffic, I don't want to keep running a piece with 9 people read it.
Yeah, it's just waste of time.
Yeah, it's waste time. I mean, I want to do the job, but I just have to find different ways to get that information out there, which is why we don't do the 5 takeaways after games anymore. We do inside the game. Because we were doing 2 pieces before, I've just added into 1. I just think it's a better approach, and our numbers tell us that's how people want to consume the information more.
Yeah.
So you adapt. It's fun. It's fun because it's different. I'm sorry to see Mack go. I really enjoyed covering Mack. I like Mack. I think Mack's a good man. I think Mack screwed up at the end. I think the saving life comment got a lot of people who are ardent supporters of him really turned him off. And
yeah, I mean, maybe if he could do it again, he doesn't say it. I'm not trying to speak for him, but you know.
Yeah, I know. But the the universities in defining football coach, I'm into saving lives. I mean, let's not forget Jake Lawler and the important role that Mack and Sally had in Jake Lawler's life. I think that probably stems from something. I'm just guessing. I think it stems from something like that. I think he's still overcome by the emotion of Ty Lee and what he's done with that. But it was just so ill-timed. And for a guy who's the most calculated person I've ever covered, by far, Kay was pretty calculated. Kay a lot of times would have a statement he wanted to get out in a press conference just to get it in the bloodstream, and he knew when to do it. He was good at doing that. And because it was him, everybody took it as, oh, this is the most important topic of the year because it's Coach K. Mack's very calculated, and for him to make that kind of mistake kind of showed where he was at that time. It was a tough time for him, and nobody's perfect. It was a tough time for him. So to go from that to where people are now is wild. And it's fun to cover because it's different. It's a lot of new stuff. There's a lot of checking to see what's going on. I mean, with me traveling, I hate it because you know how stuff always happens when I'm in the air. I got a lot of travel coming. I got to go to Boston Friday. Next Tuesday, I go to Louisville, and I'm staying out there and driving to South Bend because it's just a couple of days later.
Just never ends, man.
It never ends, and there's going to be stuff going in. So Kevin Roy, Bryant Balcom, stay on your horses, boys, because I need you.
They've been doing a great job. No, they really have. They really have. And we'll, just to go through what we're going to talk about here, we're going to talk about the portal a little bit. This will be a quicker show.
Oh, we're not done?
No, yeah, I know, right? We probably could.
That's the topic, right? The topic is the optimism and how happy people are.
Yeah, people are loving it.
Money. I guess season tickets are on sale now, right?
Yes, they are. Season tickets.
How much more? I haven't even looked. I haven't had time. I know by talking to sources, the day they introduced Belichick, a very good source said tickets are going to have to go up.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to pay for it. But look, you want to be good in football these days? Look at what Duke just did.
I know, $8 million for a quarterback.
2 years for the Tulane quarterback.
A lot of money, man.
We're going to have a different topic at a different time. And I may bring Brett on here to do one with us. We should do like how the ACC may respond or react to Carolina.
Yeah, that'd be a good podcast. Yeah.
I think Duke doing that is partly a response to what Carolina's doing.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a big effect on that.
I agree. No,
but you're also going to see one in Chapel Hill, and it's going to continue. And that's what I think is going to be so interesting about the next few weeks is the amount of money spent. There's a lot of money allocated for staff, which is one reason you don't have to go out and just hire staff to put one together. You can be a little choosier because you got a lot of money to spend. You got to get the right guy. And there's still going to be plenty of portal opportunities. They're not done in the portal yet. They're going to get more kids. And they're still looking at quarterbacks, even though they brought one in from Purdue. They're not going to go into next season with Ryan Brown, Bryce Baker, and Jacoby Criswell battling. I think they want to go a little higher than that, if you will, because they tried to get the Mateer kid from Washington State. He offered a pretty hefty sum of money, but he went a little bit more money to Oklahoma, and I believe his offensive coordinator went there. So we've seen evidence behind the scenes that they've got the cash. Just because you have it doesn't mean you just need to blindly spend it. They're still going to nickel and dime it and be very frugal with how it's spent because we've seen evidence of teams that spend a lot, but they spend wrong. Look at Florida State. They sucked this year, and they spent a lot of money in the portal. Yeah. Belichick has, as the GM of the Patriots, always knew where the beans were, and how many. And he has been a master at assigning value to guys. So that's what you're seeing happen right now, assigning value to guys. Some guys that leave. There's no value. There's not the value in keeping them for what you're going to get. There's no return on the investment or not enough. So you're seeing that in play right now with this program. And they did it before, but they had a lot less to spend. I mean, they couldn't really make hard decisions then because when you were and I'm not going to throw the number out there. I may not have told you. I'll tell you when we stop recording. The amount of money they had to spend in the portal last year after using NIL money to keep their roster mostly intact would stun people. It's so low. It would stun people. It's not the problem now. They can keep the roster intact and then go get guys, but they're being very frugal about it, which is why they haven't gone out and landed $3-4 million guys like people thought was going to happen. It's not going to work like that. They might get one. They might get a couple $1 million guys because they're still out there. But I think that watching how this plays out, and if I'm ever privy enough to get the numbers that these kids are getting, it'll be very interesting. We'll learn a lot about the insight to the approach, a little bit more insight to the approach. But we don't know what kind of access this new program is going to give us. We got a lot in the previous program, which helped a lot. It helped swat away bad narratives, false narratives. I'm not sure Belichick cares about false narratives. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know him yet. I haven't met him yet. Other than the question in the press conference, I haven't met him.
Yeah, it's still a lot to be determined. And you're speaking about the portal, which is one of three things. I want to talk about the portal a little bit. I want to talk about Steve Belichick coming in and the staff that's in place right now. And then we'll just do a quick chat about the bowl game this Saturday. Because, guys, remember, there is actually a football game this Saturday.
I'm looking forward to it now.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too.
I despise the Red Sox. And I've been known in the past to say I can't stand the earth they stand on. It's a joke. It's a joke. But I cannot wait to go in that place, man.
That'd be pretty cool. That'll be pretty cool to go up in there, especially for football game.
People are going to think I'm having a medical event with the size of the goosebumps I have.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a pretty cool event for you. I know, big a baseball fan as you are. I mean, seeing a football game in historic Fenway Park is pretty sweet.
I just want to be inside Fenway.
I know.
Just look around.
Yeah, just to check it out for a little bit. I mean, that in itself makes
that's where Carlton Fisk home run went. That exact air spot.
Yeah, that's what you'll be thinking about.
Eddie Murray, longest home run in Fenway Park. Grand Slam, 1985. Wow. Hit it off of Bob Stanley.
Wow. I love that you know that.
He drove in 6 runs in the last 2 innings of that game.
You wouldn't know that.
I still have the audio of it. I'm insane.
Oh, I bet you do.
John Miller, the great John Miller, was the Orioles radio guy at the time. Greatest home run call ever. In fact, if Chris Sneer is watching this video, he's playing that call in his head right now. I promise.
It's fantastic. AJ will be playing that call when he walks in Fenway and stares out at the field.
I can do it right now, but I'm not going to disgrace myself and lose all of our subscribers.
Yeah, they don't know if that's what they're here for, but who knows, man? There's probably some Orioles fans watching. Baseball fans for sure. Might be some Orioles fans sprinkled in there as well. There's probably some Red Sox fans in here too that are absolutely hating you bashing on them, but it's all fun.
Yeah, it's all fun. I mean, look, I actually full disclosure, since we're here, so I redeem myself with Red Sox fans. I still have the album, the actual album, LP, Super Sox 75.
Oh, wow.
When that year they went to the World Series and lost to the Reds, maybe the greatest World Series of our time for the modern era, for people who are like my age. Although 91 with the Braves and the Twins was pretty damn good too. The Jack Morris Game 7. But I liked the Red Sox back then. I was a big Jim Rice guy. I was an Orioles fan, very young, but I had Super Sox 75. I used to play wiffle ball in the backyard and I'd play it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
There's a lot of demented things in my past, which are actually parts of the dots connecting to right now. So, and I did have a Red Sox hat when I was a kid.
Okay, so you got a little, yes.
It was the red cap with the bill and the black bill rather. It was the Super Sox 75 hat. I call it the Jim Rice hat.
I love it. So you got a little bit of Red Sox connections in there. You're not all hate. Not all hate. And it's okay to hate people. It's okay to hate teams and people in sports. Bring back hating people.
I did like Dwight Evans too. When I played right field, I wanted to throw the ball to home plate like Dwight Evans did. So
trying to mimic the guys. Yeah, no, I completely understand.
And
that.
The reason this is actually related to football is because Carolina's playing in that ballpark. So
yeah, reminder, Saturday, 11 a.m. kickoff in Fenway against UConn. We'll talk about that at the very end. I'm not going to do a massive preview, but just talk about the game, kind of what we're looking for from a Carolina perspective. But just to start on the portal, since we've already talked about that a little bit, 10 commits so far. We're recording this about 12:30 p.m. on Christmas Eve. So who knows? There might be 17 guys who commit by the time this podcast comes out. But as of right now, we got 10 with Kamari House being the linebacker from Washington, being the latest guy a few days ago. So there's been a little bit of not as many guys over the last couple of days, has quieted down a little bit. But what do you make of what Carolina's done in the portal? Because you hit on it earlier, man. If this is a Mack Brown class right now, I don't think there's much excitement about it. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I just think when you look at where some of these guys have come from, Holy Cross, Delaware, you got a kicker at Michigan who didn't really play, East Carolina defensive lineman, Alabama O lineman who really good guy coming out of high school, but didn't really play. Backup quarterback at Purdue, played a little bit, but not a ton. Riso lineman, it's not like you got a bunch of guys from SEC, Big 10, Big 12 schools coming that have played a lot of minutes. These are guys that come from maybe some smaller schools or come from bigger schools, but haven't played a ton yet. But I think, like you said, the optimism that surrounds Bill Belichick and where this program is going to go and the investment coming in, Carolina fans don't really care. They're just like, oh my God, we got this guy. Bill Belichick wants him. He must be an all-star. So I think the portal to me has been a microcosm of where the excitement and belief is within the program right now. Because on paper, when you dive into it, you're kind of like, yeah, there's some nice pieces here. Some guys that might work out, but still need to develop and prove that they're ready to, be a legitimate starter, a legitimate contributor at this level. But you can also look at it and say, well, there's also some guys in there that you can be excited about based on what they're bringing to the table. So what do you make of what Carolina's done in the portal? They're not done yet, but what do you make of what they've done so far?
Well, you masterfully slid that in there saying that, well, Bill Belichick likes him.
I genuinely believe that's how people feel about it right now.
If Michael Lombardi and Bill Belichick say yes,
must be an all-star.
Then who are we to say, well, that's a mistake?
Yeah, there's no doubting people within the program right now.
Here's a couple of things. A couple of things at play people need to understand here. Okay, number one, Carolina's losing a lot of seniors, so they have to replenish those spots, and they're only bringing in, I guess it's 10 or 11 now in the incoming freshman class because they got a couple commits there. Remember, Austin Alexander reaffirmed his commitment here a week and a half ago. That kind of went way under the radar. Kid from Kentucky was pretty good commitment when they got him. Obviously, Bryce Baker reaffirmed his. So that's huge. And then they just got the kid who I guess he committed to Wake. And then with Clausen stepping down, he reopened and he's at Carolina.
Yeah.
But what you're seeing right now is it's just very small by intent. It was going to be a maximum, maybe 14 guys. I've been telling people that since April. Okay. Because they had a big freshman class last year, but also they were going to go more heavily into the portal this year under Mack. They were going to have a lot more portal money to spend after maintaining the roster as best they could using NIL money. People think NIL money is only bringing something from outside in. The first thing you do with your NIL money is you keep who you want to keep on your roster, keep them from going in the portal. That's the first thing you do. Last year, they had to pay Kamen Rucker and Amarian Hampton. And I know how much they paid them. And it was a lot less than they were being offered outside Carolina. A lot less. And in both cases, they got them for less than half price. But they still paid $700,000. Okay? So it's a lot of money when you start adding up to keeping a lot of guys. Now, what they're doing is they're building a roster. They brought in some young guys that have some years. And they're just not going to bring in all potential starters because they can't start 40 guys. You got a lot of starters back. You've got a lot of guys that are working their way into potential starting roles like a Michael Short. So you've got a lot of competition. And what they're doing is they're bringing in guys for more competition. The NFL thing is all about guys play. I covered the NFL for a while. I covered the Panthers. And one of the things I learned about that is game checks. I mean, it's about the game check, man, because most of those guys aren't very secure. But if you can get into the game check, I remember they had an offensive lineman that was sort of on hold. I mean, he's working like at a warehouse or something. But he comes up, plays 4 or 5 games, 6 games. Those are full game checks. The NFL, they don't get paid from January 1st to December 31st. They get game checks. So you've got a guy who has mastered the art of getting guys to play for the game check now in college. So he's bringing in competitive kids. I think that that is one of the layers of absolute necessity these kids must have that come in is a little bit more of a competitive edge. So they look beyond the film because that's all you got for most of them is the film. And you could do due diligence on background stuff. Not that Mack's staff didn't do those things, but I think Belichick kind of knows what he's looking at a little bit. Now, whether it works in college football or not, we don't know yet. But that's what's going on right now. So they're building a roster with different classes, with different periods of eligibility remaining. It's not just all one group come in and see what you can do. There's a lot of rhyme and reason behind these things, which is why they're going to bring in more. They're at 10 right now, I think. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be surprised if they double that number. Because there's a lot of roster spots to fill. And let's also remember, Jacob, in the summer, football moves to 105 scholarships. You don't have to use all 105. My understanding is the SEC is going to stay at 85. And I can understand why teams would want to do that, because the danger in going too much, it's a lot of guys on scholarship that are not playing. They're scholarship players, and they get antsy if they're not playing, so you're going to lose more of them. The walk-ons that don't play rarely ever hit the portal because they're walk-ons. Mm-hmm. They have a different mentality going into that experience than a scholarship kid does. But I think a guy like Belichick might look at those additional scholarships sort of like training camp, where you bring a lot of guys in, you see who surprises you, you get an evaluation, and if the bottom 20 kids hit the portal, so be it. You're going to cut them in the NFL anyway. Mm-hmm. So there's a certain mindset and approach to this, which I think is fascinating. I don't know if he's going to use all 105, but if they go to 89, they can handle 89 because the school is financially prepared to handle all scholarship additions. In basketball, it's going to 15. In baseball, it's going from 11.7 to 31. Wow. So Carolina financially has its house in order to handle all that stuff. That's not an issue. If Belichick wanted 105 guys on scholarship, he'll have 105 on scholarship. It's taken care of. It's paid for. The money's there. Mm-hmm. So that's part of what we're going to learn as we see this vision. It's almost like an artist who's got this canvas, and we can see some stuff on there. It looks kind of interesting. We're not 100% sure what it is yet because he's still working the canvas. When he finishes with the canvas, we'll know 85, 90, 92, 97, whatever he's going to do with the scholarships, we'll know. And there'll be more room to bring guys in the spring, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's going to be a big offseason, especially in that portal. And I agree. I think we'll see a lot more commitments and a lot more signees, moving forward. I don't think it's.
And you'll see departures.
Done. Yeah.
And you're going to see departures in the spring because once they see some guys in person, they say, look, you're not going to play here. She wants to go somewhere else.
It goes both ways. There'll be a lot of
kids are getting paid now. It's not such a bad look to push a kid out anymore because that's what it is. Everything has changed. Yeah. And there might be kids that say, man, this guy's a hard ass. I don't want to play for him.
I think that will happen.
And they go. No doubt about it. Look, North Carolina, I think that is going to challenge some kids that are currently in the program. I can see some kids that are not in the portal now that will go through spring practice and leave because that might not be the environment they want to play in.
Yeah, and it happens. I mean, especially with a new coach coming in, but someone like Bill Belichick, I mean, there's more than just, X's and O's. I think there's personalities. Maybe they won't get along, and guys are like, well, I'm not going to play here. I need to go somewhere else. So, no, this is a very fluid situation that's going to continue to be fluid for months to come. So, going to be fascinating and probably a bit tiresome to follow because it's just going to be popping off all the time. But, AJ, speaking of, I mentioned Carolina's latest commit signee, whatever you want to call it, from the portal was Kamari House coming from Washington. Not the only guy Carolina's secured from Washington, with Steve Belichick coming in as Carolina's defensive coordinator, that being confirmed a couple of days ago. So always something that felt like was going to happen. It just made sense. Bill Belichick's son coming in, coaching in college, already spent a ton of time with him, 12 years with the Patriots, winning 3 Super Bowls with him as a safeties coach, DB coach, linebackers, all types of different roles. But most recently at University of Washington, coming in and really turning that defense around. I think when you look at it, let's keep in mind too, this is a team last year that was in played for a national title, only the ranked 99th overall defense that season. He's got him as almost a top 25, ranked as a number 26 defense nationally right now. So heck of a job that he's done coming in there and making that Washington defense a heck of a lot better than it was. But AJ, the age-old question, can he do it at North Carolina? Because I don't think I'm speaking any out of turn right now. nobody's really been able to do it in the last 30 years. So good luck to Steve Belichick coming in and trying to turn this ship around, because it's been a ship that nobody's been able to really get going in a positive direction. So what do you make of it? What's your thoughts on the Steve Belichick hire? Again, I think everybody saw it coming. Not a surprise. A lot to like about what he could potentially do here, but good luck. That's all I got to say.
Well, first of all, as one of our jobs, and one of the things that we do so well is poo-pooing the false narratives. And there were so many false narratives about Mack, from the JMU game to his termination and to the process in getting Belichick. I've been told by someone who absolutely would know for a fact that Steve Belichick was never a part of the negotiations. Name didn't come up.
It would make no sense either. It would be the stupidest thing if you were.
But the AD at North Carolina would never agree to a coach in waiting. The chancellor would never agree to it. The board of trustees. When I was talking to people, and I had my sources were in different areas that were very, very good, and every one of them's like, where is this coming from? I said, it's either fake media, like I say fake media, I don't know, faux media, pseudo media, couch media, or national guys. And national guys feel the pressure to get clicks and to get stuff out there. And there's also this aspect of the media, this element of the media where something's going on, so I must appear relevant. So I must put something out there. And it's a real ugly part of where we are with media right now in all forms. It happens politically like crazy, happens in sports. And unfortunately for a lot of people, the line of real media and not real media has been blurred, but also the demands by the higher ups placed on some of these national people is absurd. And it's untenable. One of the reasons why I left Fox and didn't go back was because some of the national aspects of my job, it was just too much. I'm using an example. When Jeff Goodman left to go to CBS from Fox, I became the national interim college basketball writer. Mm-hmm. My first assignment was a story on Penn State. Now, one of my best friends in life went to Penn State, but I've never talked to him about Penn State basketball, but for like maybe 8 minutes. It was always Penn State football. So I didn't know a lot about Penn State, so I had to dive in, do some stuff, talk to some people at Penn State, and then wrote a piece on it from a national perspective as an authoritarian, and I was not an authoritarian on it. So I completely understand why national people get stuff wrong all the time, even with a program as high profile as North Carolina, because their boots are not on the ground. Our boots are on the ground, and so much of what was being reported was false. And one of the things that was reported the most was Steve Belichick would be head coach in waiting. It was never a topic of conversation, never came up. It was not one of those lines that lawyers were combing over line by line. That was also not a 400-page manifest. That never existed.
Just fake, man. Just fake news all over the place.
Just like, hey, there's a flying saucer in the sky. Maybe that's Steve Belichick circling Kenan Stadium for 4 hours to see if he wants to coach, and someone from NC State shot it down. I mean, that's like the same kind of truth.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
There's no truth in any of those things. No, you're 100%.
But it was expected, not that he said he was going to hire his kid, but why wouldn't he hire his kid?
Yeah, why would
he coached them for 12 years of the Patriots. Bill spent a ton of time around the Washington program this past year, and his son did a good job. Now, Washington went from 99th to 26 in total defense, but let's remember, when they were 99th, part of that, and Carolina fans can identify with this, you had Michael Penix at quarterback, scoring in a minute 6 seconds.
Yeah, there was no respite.
Their defense was on the field a lot, which skewed some of the stats, but it was still much improved. The only reason Washington was remotely competitive this year is because the defense was really good. Mm-hmm. So Belichick had his year doing that. Now he's going to do that at North Carolina, but he's going to be surrounded by such a great, knowledgeable staff that it's just not going to be a sink or swim by what he does. When Jay Bateman Mack hired him, Mack said, okay, it's your defense. Sink or swim. And he saw it eventually. When he brought Gene in, it's your defense. Same thing. Brought Jeff Collins in. Hey, money down. It's your defense. Cookie cakes. It's your defense. This is not going to be that way. This is going to be a more connected operation on that side of the ball. And because of that, the experience that Steve Belichick has as a defensive coordinator at 37 years of age right now, and then 38, 39, 40, however long his dad will be there, he's going to grow more into that role and have lots of prongs helping him out.
Yeah. You ever covered a father-son duo like that?
I'd have to think. And after this,
I can't think of really many that. I mean, there have been, but I'm sure there's not a ton that have happened, especially in college. I mean, maybe there are more than I think. I'm sure there are. But
most of my coverage has been in this area. It's been the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, I don't think it's happened in this area for
Bobcat.
sure.
Remember, my NBA time was Bobcats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Paul Silas. Lots of conversations with Paul Silas back in the day, and he did not agree with the Kemba Walker draft either, by the way.
Really?
He said, well, he wanted him, so he says he reminded him of himself. So you know who he is.
One way to put it.
That's what Paul Silas said.
Yeah.
Media day there, the three of us sitting at a table talking to him. The media day there was unbelievable. There was like nobody there. So anyway, in all the college programs, I don't recall anything like that.
It's a unique situation, especially with a guy like Bill Belichick and his son.
Larry Fedora's son was working with the program at the end.
Yeah, Butch Davis's son was around too, but he wasn't.
Yeah, and Larry's son, I think, was a quality control guy or something like that.
But not a coordinator position.
First year of Mack, yeah. And he was there with the program. And that shows just that transition was pretty smooth. As upset as Larry was when he got fired, he was very upset. He respected Mack Brown so much, and the kids that were there, he was very helpful in that transition, and his son stayed on. Mm-hmm. So that's probably the closest thing I could think of. Butch's son, I think
he was always. I think he was in high school at the time. He was in high school. He was always around
because the girl that played a significant role in getting them on probation was basically his nanny.
Yeah,
and she had access to the house, and she could walk in the house, go to the refrigerator, and grab something to drink. That's how close she was. So when Butch's like, well, I don't really know her. I mean,
I don't know about that.
I'm not going to blast Butch here, but Butch would not a very truthful man.
Yeah, put it that way.
I barely even know John Blake. I guess I could say it. Statute of limitations over. So Butch gets hired. I'm sidebarring here for the 88th time today. Butch gets hired, and they invited a handful of us in the media to come have lunch with Butch, and we were going to meet his assistant coaches on his new staff at North Carolina. He got up, and we're like at a small conference table type of setting in the Kingdom Football Center. He's walking around, such a politician. Butch would make eye contact with every person in the room. He's great at it.
Exactly what he was doing. All part
great at it. And he made it work for him. No problem with that. He's walking around, he's talking about the different coaches, and John Blake was toward the end. And for people who don't remember, John Blake was a head coach at Oklahoma for a few years and compiled a roster that Bob Stoops in part won a national championship with, I think in his second year at Oklahoma. But Butch had known John Blake forever and met him, I think, when John was in high school. And there was, I'm not going to go through all the connections right now, bore people.
They knew each other pretty well.
Might be boring people anyway. So Butch says to us, he's basically like a son of mine. So then when all the crap's coming down a few years later, I'll never forget this. And every time I need to bring it up next time I see him. I was on his podcast a couple weeks ago when Joe Giglio was on Carolina football for a year. I mean, he was unrelenting with Butch. It was a beautiful thing to watch. And the Blake stuff is coming out. And he asked Butch after practice about John Blake. He goes, I barely knew him before. I mean, it's just the biggest friggin' lie you can ever imagine.
I love this story.
And I don't think Joe was at that lunch, but the N&O was.
Yeah, they did.
So the N&O, they all had to share information. And that was the Sam I am comment or whatever that Joe threw back at him, and had Butch flustered and fist bumped to Joe Giglio for that 13 years later.
Yeah, a long time.
14 years later, something like that. 14 years later. So I don't know why we got so far off on that, but yeah, because his son, the nanny, the team nanny, ticket payer and all that kind of stuff. She was driving Butch's son around. In fact, she drove him to a road game with the family car. So she was that close. Yeah. So his son worked for him, I think, at Florida Atlantic.
Yeah,
that might be what you're thinking of.
He did work there. I remember seeing his son a lot on the fields for pregame in Carolina. I just remember that because I went to go to all the games back in his.
Yeah, and by the way, that was my longest sidebar in history.
No, that's a good. I'm glad you told that story actually because.
Well, I don't know. So, I mean, is it useful to right now? Some people might think I get too far off into the weeds, but I did bring it back to what you were saying to answer the question about the father and son. This will be a first for me for sure. I'm
glad you brought it up because. We talked about a lot during this past season, but I always used to get annoyed with the revisionist history surrounding Butch Davis when you ever like bring Butch back, and it's just like, do you guys like not remember what happened or anything that was going on? Cheated his butt off and still didn't win more than 8 games, and kicked off to start 2 halves twice in a game. 3 years in a row, same record in the ACC. It's just like people act like you went 11-1 3 years ago. I'm just like, I'm glad you brought that up to illustrate why it would not be a good idea to do that for all the crazy people who thought that was a good idea 3 months ago. But I like the hire. It makes sense. Like I always say, I'm gonna believe it when I see it, guy. When it comes to this defense, because as I've mentioned 1,000 times on here, been going to Carolina games for a long time. My dad's been a season ticket holder 15 years. I've been seeing a lot. I've never really witnessed a really good Carolina defense. So good luck to this regime. Belichick coming in. They were good. They were good, and then it all. And for some of us older folks, this 96 and 97 defenses were the best defense in college football for 2 straight years. Yeah, and that's where the defenses look. Carolina, when Carolina started getting good again. And Bill Dooley, it really needs to be more recognized by Carolina fans and by the ACC, because the ACC had a lot of good programs, and then basketball just became so important in the 50s and throughout the 60s that football slid back. And Carolina had one good team in the 60s, and most of the 50s they stunk. Mm-hmm. And Bill Dooley was hired, the old trench fighter. He was hired, and he was the epitome of 3 yards in a cloud of dust. But 3 yards in a cloud of dust and being able to handle that on the other side of the ball, it was glass chewing football at the highest level. And those are John Bunting, you swear by him, and you see the toughness if you ever got to know John Bunting, just the edge that he had as a human being, and for football, and that's where all that came from. And they had 1,000-yard rushers out the wazoo back in the 70s, and it started that. And Carolina, through Dick Crum, was known as a physical football program. They were known for physicality. Now they're known for finesse and missed tackles. Mm-hmm. Back then, they weren't. We were gang tackling. They had linebackers in the NFL, defensive linemen in the NFL, offensive linemen in the NFL, running backs in the NFL. Not wide receivers, not quarterbacks. Some DBs, but they were a trenches football program. Dick Crum was that way when he came in from Miami of Ohio and inherited a lot of great talent like LT, and he had 2 back-to-back top 10 teams with a lot of that talent. So the Bill Dooley way of football is something that has happened at this school before. It can happen again, and I think it's very, very interesting as we think back to great defenses at North Carolina, that they were there. Go look at defensive numbers in the 70s and early 80s. Bill Belichick alluded to it in his press conference. Yeah, they've done it. Lawrence Taylor's first position coach in the NFL was Bill Belichick. Mm-hmm. And he threw Donnell Thompson's name out there. I mean, he knows. Mm-hmm. And that was what was so intriguing. Carolina had an opportunity at that period to become sort of Clemson-like. And it didn't happen. If Kelvin Bryant doesn't blow out his knee, maybe Carolina plays for the national title that year and not Clemson. How would things be different now? Belichick was alive, aware, and scouting that program at that time, so he knows what it can be. So you fast forward all these years, he's there now. And I don't know. I just think there's so many really interesting connections to why this would intrigue him and to what it can be. There's a lot of narratives that Bill Belichick has an opportunity to just blast into outer space, beginning with the one that you just mentioned a few minutes ago. Mm-hmm. Most people don't remember 96 or 97.
And if they do, they're old enough to, but a lot of the fans aren't old enough. A lot of the fans are like you. All they know is Carolina defenders chasing guys in the end zone.
Yeah.
Or pass interference at the worst time, or roughing the passer at the worst time. That's what you guys know.
Yeah.
You've got a guy there now whose worldview of North Carolina football begins well before that. It was trench fighter. Dick Crum was really good for a while. Go back and look at the Gator Bowl win over Michigan and how important that was to the program at the time, because bowl games mattered back then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Go back and look at beating Texas in the state of Texas on Christmas Day in the Sun Bowl in snow. Mm-hmm. Go back to those things. They were doing that at that time, and Belichick was scouting players that's where he learned as a pro coach how to scout talent.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what he sees, and that's what he thinks this can be. And having his son there, I think that his son has a very similar world football view.
Of course.
So why not? It makes sense.
Makes a ton of sense. I think Belichick is on paper at least a good hire, and working alongside his dad too. Maybe that even takes it up a few notches with their understanding. And obviously, this is son. So I mean, they got he got most of, if not all, his football knowledge from him in the first place. So I think that connection there can help maybe breed not only a better product on the field, AJ, but culture. It's what it is. It's what it's about. No good teams. I don't care what sport you play. There are no really, really good teams or programs that don't have a direct correlation to a really, really awesome culture. Those are a connected thing. So I think that's another thing that maybe can help breeding that culture and getting it back to what we saw in 96, 97, flare up during Butch, and even going back further, like you mentioned, in the 70s and 80s. So
let me very quickly add to what you're saying, because it's a great point. And you're not talking about the culture in the building. You're talking about the culture on the staff.
Yeah. That's
exactly what and it's a great point. You've like 3 or 4 great points today.
I appreciate it, man. I'm trying.
You've been chugging your journalistic spinach.
I got a lot of coffee in me right now. I'm feeling good.
Yeah, I got fiber energy in me. Imagine that. I'm not ridiculing Mack at all for this. I'm just making a correlation here. Even in BC, I asked Mack a question about not running the ball, not giving Omari the ball on 3rd and short, 4th and short. Well, that's why you talk to Chip on Monday. You ask you a question about something, that's why you talk to Jeff on Monday. That's why you talk to Jay on Monday. That's why you talk to Gene on Monday.
It's always a deflect.
We're never, ever going to get that, because that connection, that culture on the staff, the head coach will be able to speak for that. Now, I understand why Mack did it, and I don't want what I'm saying to make it seem like Mack was disconnected and didn't know why. He was very much about grooming people to become who they could become. So you let the coach speak for it. But the coordinators under Mack Brown were the head coaches of that side of the ball for the game. And Mack would listen, but he rarely exercised veto power. He has said publicly that when he would exercise veto power, a lot of it was about a fake punt, or about when to go for, or, okay, it's 3rd and 17. He would say, okay, guys, this is 4-down territory. You got 2 downs. So Chip Lindsey or whoever, Phil Longo, wouldn't have to try to figure out how to get an 18-yard play. They could get 9 and 9 and keep the ball, move the chains. Mack was very active in that aspect, but not others during games. I would think that when we talk to Bill Belichick about specifics about defense and offense, but certainly defense, he's never going to say, yeah, well, that's why you talk to Steve on Monday. And I think that's the culture you're talking about, and I think that that's a very good thing moving forward.
I agreed. Yeah, it all starts from the coaching staff and trickles down to the players and who they bring in and how they coach. But again, if your staff doesn't have it, if they're not setting that tone early on, then you don't really stand a chance of maybe developing it as a whole with the players too. So yeah, that's going to be one thing that'll be kind of fascinating to see with this new era and regime, is how does that develop? How quickly does it develop? Does it develop? And what kind of conversations are we having in a couple of years about?
It's going to be quick because there's continuity. So. Who is the most important person on Belichick's staff for his last 3 Super Bowl wins? Michael Lombardi.
Yeah.
All right. And those 4 eyeballs, those 2 sets of eyes, were as responsible for the personnel on those teams as anything else.
Yeah.
So now he's bringing in a defensive coordinator who's his son, whom he's been grooming. It's going to have a very similar worldview. So I think the culture on the staff is going to fit in very well. There's a reason it's just Freddie, and this isn't a negative on the other guys, but Freddie was an NFL head coach. He spent a lot of time in the league. He was in part of the Parcells world, which is where Belichick comes from. So that culture, Bill Belichick can smell the culture. It's like a deer knows where not to go sometimes because they can sense it. So the deer doesn't, this is bear territory or whatever.
Yeah, you gotta get out of here. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Bill Belichick has that scent and that sense with guys. So it's going to take a little longer to build the staff, but they are going to slide into an existing culture that is in the process of being built and established, but already is there to a degree, instead of let's get the staff together and let's just figure out what our culture is with these guys.
That's a good point. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're not starting from scratch. It's a new challenge. It's a new,
it's a proven concept.
Yeah, but there is proof in the pudding that it's worked at the highest level, and these guys have that.
Now you see it working out. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's good.
I look. What have you said 50 times since they hired Belichick? When you and I have talked, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? What is there to lose at this point?
Yeah.
Status quo wasn't working. So if they have a chance to literally reinvent the football wheel in Chapel Hill, do it.
Yeah, 100%.
So I applaud the BOT. I applaud Bubba. I applaud Chancellor Roberts. I applaud the boosters who are ponying up the cash for saying it is time to step outside of our skin and try to be something new and different. And I think that there will be an effect on the rest of the league. I think the Duke thing is the first sign of what Carolina's doing affecting the rest of the conference in a positive way.
Completely agree, man. Real quick sidebar before we just do a quick look ahead to Saturday's bowl game. I want to give a shout out to Albert Hall on Twitter. So I'm shouting him out not only because he shouted us out, but to illustrate a further point that we talked about earlier on. I'm going to read what he said. Just reached out. Merry Christmas Eve, JT and AJ and crew. All the best for Tar Heel Illustrated in 2025. Here's the kicker, though, AJ. Would love more football content. # Chapel Bill. Now, how many times I've been with THI for 6 years now, 6 years in November. And I genuinely do not remember, maybe one time during Mack's first offseason, maybe when they hired him, maybe, but I genuinely cannot remember anybody reaching out to us on Twitter. And this is not the first person who's done this. Shout out to him for doing it and saying on December 24th, bring on more football content, man. It's just a weird world we're living in right now. That's the Bill Belichick effect.
Especially
that is it. Especially
since we go nuts with football content, even in the bad years, even those last 2 glaring years.
We don't slow down. No.
We don't slow down. I mean, we don't. It tapers because basketball becomes totally dominant in coverage for a while, just like football does once September hits, late August hits. But yeah, we have always gone. We've never really let up with it. We do more football content than basketball. A, because there's more storylines.
Yeah.
B, because there's more things to dissect. But there's more recruiting for football because a lot more numbers of players. We get spring practice, so we get a ton of stuff there. And we do 35 features, player features and position group features in the offseason alone. Think about the offseason is 3 months, basically, for our hardcore coverage. 35 of those things, that's every 3 days, every 2.5 days, we're running a football feature.
11 or 12 a month.
And I'm not defending or anything like that, but I love what he's saying. So what he is saying is more football on steroids now because you're already doing a lot of it. Yeah, but I agree with you. I think it's a good sign, and it's the vibe I get from everybody. I actually had an Uber driver this past weekend, the one Uber driver that I had a conversation with and could have a conversation with, want to know what I was in town for, and in basketball, I love Carolina basketball. Boy, how about that football hire? Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Did that surprise you? I'm like, well, and I went through the whole process and stuff. They said it'll be very interesting to talk more about football in the Uber than basketball, and that was very interesting.
Yeah, it's just different than the norm of what
especially since they were driving me to Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, 100%. Usually all the talks about basketball and everything, and it's just not right now because of the excitement with Bill Belichick coming in. So, yeah, like you said, major credit to the administration for getting it done, and really looking forward to seeing what he can do starting next season. But a massive offseason still ahead. But AJ, before the offseason really gets kicking into high gear, officially starts, I should say, Carolina does have one more game in a bowl game against UConn. Fenway Bowl this Saturday in Fenway Park in Boston. That's an 11 a.m. kickoff. I'm not sure what the odds are. I don't know if they've come out yet. Would assume Carolina will be favored, but I don't know about that. So I don't want to sit here really preview.
No odds yet for this game?
I haven't looked. They're probably are,
because you don't
but I haven't looked.
Play.
Because let me look while we're.
There are a lot of Carolina players that are in the portal. There's some that are in the portal right now that are practicing every day.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. A lot of them.
You don't know who's going to play, which is why we're going to do like a 14-second preview of the game.
Yeah, I don't want to focus. Yeah, I don't see any. Let's see. Carolina opened at -3, so 3-point favorite. Or no, excuse me. This says UConn opened as a 6-point favorite. Now Carolina's a 3-point favorite. So that's an interesting shift if that is true. And maybe that has to do with UConn players leaving, Carolina players coming back. I'm not exactly sure where that line.
It probably opened when the game was announced.
Probably so.
And that
probably
was so okay. So that was before Amari. That was around the time Amari Campbell and those guys were going in the portal.
Yeah, that probably has played a fact. That's a big shift. I would
have had them a 6-point dog then too. So now they've come back.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind, when you think about the portal guys they've acquired, think about the ones that have left the portal and come back, because they're not doing it for free.
Mm-hmm.
Those were some of the and Amari Campbell could have made 7 figures in the portal.
Oh God, he could have made big money. I understand why you want to come back because of everything going on, the excitement around it. But yeah, he could have made a lot of money elsewhere. He's a big talent, big, massive.
He wants to play in the NFL, and now he's got an NFL coach. He's got an NFL staff. So
why not? I'd come back too if I were him. But just to focus on the bowl game real quick, I think the major obviously Freddie Kitchens, the head coach, he will be retained on Bill Belichick's staff as an offensive assistant. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where he steps in next year. But he's the guy leading the program right now. Like you mentioned, some guys leaving the portal, coming back in, some guys that probably won't play practicing. So I don't want to focus too much on the matchup. I think the main question I have is, what are you looking for Saturday? Because this is I look at it like this. This is the official end of the Mack Brown era. It's already ended. The Bill Belichick era started, but this season ends on Saturday, and things really start to change going into the next year. Because like we've talked about here, we don't even know who half the staff is going to be, and we don't even know what the team's really going to look like right now with all the moving parts. So what are you looking for Saturday? Can you take a lot out of Saturday, or is it just kind of like this is the end and it's a fresh start afterwards?
This is part of the new and different of Carolina. This is in a very modified way the first game of the Belichick era.
Yeah, in a weird way.
Because Freddie talks to Bill every day about practice.
Mm-hmm.
Bill knows exactly what's going on. There is input. Now, he doesn't have the luxury of having a team for 6 months and making that input. But remember what I've said before. He was paying very close attention to this team during the season because this was the job he wanted. Forget all the other stuff. Oh, it's the biggest job, so that's why I went there. No, this was identified last summer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's very well sourced. So I'm not going to go down that path now because it'll take me 8 minutes.
Very well sourced.
So he has input with the team. He and Freddie, Freddie didn't answer a lot of questions at all really last week when we talked to him, which might be a precursor of things to come, which means we have to go through the side door, and coaches hate when media goes to the side door. But as I've said before, open up the front door, let us in so we don't have to go through the side door and report things in a way you probably wouldn't prefer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I say prefer, I shouldn't even use that word. Just work with us. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, back on track here. He has some input. He knows what they have. He knows what Davion Goss is. And Davion Goss will be, what his numbers are, will be a key to this game because Carolina's going to go in there and try to pound it and run. And Davion Goss, to me, is the next 1,000-yard running back at North Carolina. He can do a lot of stuff that Amarian can do. Just hasn't gotten to that level yet, hasn't proven it yet because he hasn't had the opportunity. But remember, Amarian, after the 100-yard games against Florida A&M and Georgia State. Didn't do a whole lot of that after that his freshman year. So I think that running the ball, they have their offensive line basically intact now. And they lost Howard Sampson, but they've got other parts. They've got guys that can play. We may see one loose end there on the offensive line, but they're going to have Blasky. I believe Willie Lampkin's going to play in the All-Star in the bowl game.
They just posted pictures of the team traveling, and he was pictured, so he is there at least. So I don't know why.
That's right, because that's right. Today they head to Boston. That's right.
They literally. I just looked on Twitter. Literally posted a few pictures 5 minutes ago. So
and Willie needs to, because he's going to have a hard time getting drafted. I think he's going to play in the NFL for a long time because he's just good, and the NFL doesn't care in the end about specs and where you came from, but they're not going to use a draft spot on a 5'11" offensive lineman. It's not going to happen. But he's going to play because he needs more reps, wants to show more film, and he's just a competitor. I mean, Willie Lampkin's been one of the most pleasurable dudes to cover at Carolina football I've ever dealt with before. So they'll have him. He's a first-team All-America offensive lineman.
Yeah.
So they're going to have a lot of their parts. They're just not going to have a Marion, but they'll be fine, I think, offensively. Defensively, I don't 100% know some of the guys that are going to play now. I mean, they haven't had a bunch of opt-outs, but I think opting out now is more silent than it used to be. It used to be sort of a dramatic, I'm opting out. And they put this long letter.
It's a lot more low-key. Yeah.
The letters to the fan base, which just always kind of gets me. But so I think that they'll mostly have their guys, and with a lot of renewed vibe, I would expect them to play well. And there's a lot of kids that want to impress a legend. Like Mack was a legend. Belichick is a legend, like Mount Rushmore type legend.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of incentive for these kids that plan on staying in the program to play well. There's a lot of incentive to not give up on a play. There's a lot of incentive that when you get the quarterback in your grasp, to wrap them up, because the film will be combed over very closely. And so for these kids, this is the ones that are going to be back. This is the beginning of the Belichick era for them.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, I think Carolina's going to be ready to play. I think UConn's going to be ready to play because Jim Mora Jr. I watched his presser the other day, and it's like, look, we're looking at this as an extension to our regular season. This is as important as any of the games we played, and they view this as a launching pad game. Plus, I have very good friends, UConn grad, and they are stuck in football purgatory right now as an independent.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people at UConn that just say, look, Big 12 or ACC, someone bring us in, because football, I know UConn basketball is what it is, but football's the money. So if they can win a game like this, they believe that it can help elevate their stature and make them more intriguing to the Big 12 or the ACC.
Makes sense.
I'm not telling you that's how the ACC sees it. I'm just saying what I've been told by some UConn people. That's what they think. So it should be a competitive game.
It should be. I think it will be. I think it actually might be a really entertaining game. Bowl games can be a little tricky because it feels like more often than not, there's like one team who shows up and there's another team who just doesn't. That just feels like that's how bowl season works out a lot. I don't necessarily know if I look at that game like this because of what you just said about UConn and because of where Carolina's at right now. I don't necessarily see a reality in which one of these teams doesn't show up ready to play. I just don't think that would make sense based on what we've talked about.
If John Sumrall was hired, Carolina would pull a no-show and they get blown out.
Yeah, I agree. But when you've got that guy and you got the coach coming on,
such a massive statement was made that if you're a player and you're going to be back and you know that you've already seen that guy around the building a lot and he's talked to the team a few times, you'd be a fool to not go out there and try to do everything in your power to be the best possible player you can that day.
100%.
That's why it's going to be a competitive game. Both teams care. I think it's going to be a good game. I have no clue who's going to win. I do like Carolina's ability to run the ball in this game. And I think that that'll ultimately be the key. So I haven't done my stat pick yet. I'm going to do that after we finish this, but I'm leaning Carolina because I think that they will run the ball and Goss will have a big game. He'll break some runs, and I think they're going to win like in the 21-17 range.
That's what I was thinking. I'm going to go, I'll go 24-21. I don't think it's going to be a math. I don't think it's going to be a ton of scoring in this game. I don't think it's going to be a high scoring game.
It's going to be a physical game.
Yeah, physical game. Give me 24-21. I haven't done my stat pick either. That may change, but I think I might roll with that.
You need to send that to me, by the way.
Yeah, I'll do that after we get off this so I can, because if not, I just won't think about it for 3 days. So I'm going to go ahead and bang that out after we get off here.
Because you don't want me to badger you guys with text messages. Because Chelsea sent hers.
Good stuff, Chelsea.
Right. Bryant sent his, and now we're waiting on AJ and Jacob.
Yeah, well, I'll go ahead and hammer that as soon as I get off so I don't forget, because I will forget over the next couple of days with everything coming up. But, AJ, I think it's a good place to leave it. Last podcast of the 2024 season, UNC football show, I should say, not
Mack.
podcast.
You see Max?
Yeah, Max coming in to say, hey. Yeah, man, look at Max coming in to round off the podcast and do us a nice little send-off for the, like I said, final UNC football show of the season. And new era officially starts. I guess it's already officially started, but we'll say it officially starts Sunday when the season officially ends. So, yeah, man, a lot of optimism, a lot of reasons to be excited about Carolina football, and we'll be here every step of the way to cover it. So make sure you guys keep it locked to TarHillIllustrated.com. AJ will be up in a freezing Boston on Saturday. I think it was supposed to be in the 30s. So that is a little bit better than what it could be up there. So count your blessings when you're up in that stadium and walking and driving and doing whatever you got to do to get to the arena. And hopefully you get back a little quicker than you did for the basketball game this past weekend. Put it that way.
Yeah, because I got to come back Sunday and I got a basketball game that night at the Dean Dome.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's just never ends, man. It just never ends.
Do you think Max, and Izzy never comes in here when Izzy's the other boxer we have. She's completely insane, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you think Max thinks I'm nuts that I'm sitting here just talking to myself for hours?
Probably. He probably has no idea what you're doing.
Right now, I think he wants a treat. That's why he's bothering me.
Yeah,
otherwise,
like,
he'd be like, yeah, whatever.
He's like, come on, man. Give me a little treat. We've been doing podcasts.
Daddy's talking to himself again. He's crazy.
I love it, man. I absolutely love it. But we'll wrap it up like this. Appreciate everybody who's watched. Hope everybody has a great Christmas Eve. This will be coming out on Christmas Eve. Hope everybody has an even better Christmas. Enjoy the day. We're going to take a little hiatus on Christmas Day. No content coming out that day, but we'll be back. We're going to have 4 videos coming out this week, not even including the 3 things this weekend. So that'll be 6 videos this week, despite it being Christmas. AJ made an executive decision. You know what? We're going to disconnect on Thursday, on Wednesday for Christmas Day and just let
my last day off was June 25th, 2023. I've worked every day since then.
I think you've earned a day off, right? Probably, maybe, potentially. I think we can give you one. We'll give you one on Christmas Day. So it'll be a little bit quiet day, but again, we'll have football and basketball show coming out on Christmas Eve, scattered across the day whenever I can get them up. But yeah, we'll get those edited as soon as we hop off of here. But I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Another edition of the UNC Football Show. Appreciate you guys watching as always. Like the video if you're excited about the bowl game. Like the video if you think Bill Belichick's going to do a good job. Like the video if you think Steve Belichick's a good hire. Like the video if you like what Carolina's done in the portal. Just like the video below. Make sure you subscribe. Hit the notification bell.
Come advertise with us. Come sponsor.
Yeah, come advertise with us as well. We meant to shout that out earlier, but great time to do so. Traffic's been fantastic. Like AJ mentioned earlier on this pod, with just the amount of attention on football right now, we can do something great and partner and really get your business out there, and it'll benefit everybody and get a little bit of that insider info if you partner with us too, right, AJ? That's a big incentive of it.
And you get to be pals with Jacob Turner.
Yeah, man. Heck yeah.
And you might get to know Kevin Roy enough that he'll ridicule you.
Yeah. If Kevin starts doing that means he likes you.
That means you're in like Flint, and that means Kevin loves you.
Exactly, man. Exactly. But yeah, big shout out to our staff, all the great work we've done. And yeah, plenty more coming in 2025. So just make sure you keep it locked on over here and come on over and sign up to $833 a month. Links in the description below. Appreciate it, guys. See y'all next time. Thanks.